Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I'm excited you're here, and if you're new, thank you for joining me. Today, I'm going to be talking about the fact that Netflix has acquired Warner Brothers. It's pretty crazy. I don't even know really what to think about it yet. I saw that the news broke. I haven't really had time to read all the articles and stuff. I just know that it's an insane deal. It's like the biggest in entertainment ever. So I wanted to read it, give you my reaction, and discuss it a little bit with you. So this might be a little bit different than some of my other videos. You know, there may not be as much editing. Hopefully it won't be too long, but we got to talk about it. Everyone's going to be talking about it, and this is I'm a filmmaker if you don't know, so I'm in the industry and I try to pay attention to what's going on and what this means for streaming, for independent filmmakers, for movie theaters, for good movies, right? And I'm a huge Batman fan, in case you didn't know that. So, big DC fan in general, whether it's movies, comic books, whatever, it doesn't matter. But yeah, I'm very curious what's going on here. So I'm gonna dive into this article that I found from The Hollywood Reporter. Wow, this is crazy, guys. The deal is valued at $82.7 billion. Like that is insane. Like, I can't even remember what Disney paid for Star Wars 12 years ago. It was billions, but it was like not valued at that. So it says the streaming giant's proposal includes a $5.8 billion breakup fee and promises to maintain Warner Brothers' current operations, including theatrical releases. Theater owners are already speaking out. Why wouldn't they be? You know, like, thanks for saying that you're gonna support theatrical releases, but I think that's a difficult thing to trust Netflix with. Like, they are primarily a streamer. They do occasionally put things out in theaters, but it's usually like very limited, very short. It's not their focus, and they've made that very clear in a lot of their, press briefings and whatever. They don't intend to do that kind of stuff. So I understand the hesitation and the trepidation from theater chains for sure. Netflix, run by co-CEO Ted Sarandos and Greg Peters, has agreed to buy Warner Brothers in a mega deal valued at $82.7 billion under an effort nicknamed Project Noble. The streaming giant's leadership secured $59 billion in financing from a consortium of banks to assemble the deal. That's wild. I don't even know what that means exactly, which banks, who's involved, I don't know. Netflix says the buy would give users more choice and let it optimize its plans. It will also expand its studio operations while creating better value for talent and shareholders, with $2 to $3 billion in annual cost savings. The deal proposal has a breakup fee of $5.8 billion, meaning that if the acquisition is scuttled in any way, Netflix still has to pay Warner Brothers Discovery those billions. There's a lot going on here. That's optimize its plans. What does that mean exactly? It's like different pricing tiers. Does that mean AI? Does that mean you're gonna allow us to grab from the Warner Brothers library and create our own movies, kind of like Disney was mentioning with things like Frozen? It's interesting about that breakup fee. Now, like I said, I haven't really read too much, but I have seen some headlines and a couple things here and there. I've already seen that apparently a lot of studio executives, in an open letter to Congress, have sent a letter, basically begging our government to break up this monopoly, this deal. So I'm wondering how that would work. I don't know if there's gonna be any involvement whatsoever, okay? I just wanna be very clear on that. I have no idea what's going on in that direction. But if this were to break up, apparently they're gonna owe them, almost $6 billion anyway, which is pretty crazy. So skipping ahead a little bit here, it says Netflix said that it expects to maintain the current operations of Warner Brothers, including theatrical releases for films, though specifics aside from top-line deal numbers remain scarce, and that may be the focus of opposition to the acquisition as the dust settles on the announcement. Netflix also made its pitch to filmmakers and creatives, writing that by uniting Netflix's member experience and global reach with Warner Brothers' renowned franchises and extensive library, the company will create greater value for talent, offering more opportunities to work with beloved intellectual property, tell new stories, and connect with a wider audience than ever before. I still think that's kind of vague. Obviously, they're not going to share all the details in a press release, that they would with, say, a filmmaker or a producer or an executive or something like that. it just seems kind of generic. It's like, what does that mean by the user experience? You're going to give more opportunities, extensive. Like, again, all my mind is going to is AI, and that just makes me sad. Like, maybe not, maybe I'm wrong, but I just hope not. And I also just hope, because we've seen this with Disney as well, just the churning out of IP, and that has just severely degraded the quality of storytelling and filmmaking. Like, you know, yeah, I like the fact that we get our favorite universes and worlds and things like that, but I don't mind waiting a little bit, if that makes sense. Like, there used to be a time when I was younger, if there was going to be a sequel, it was like minimum 3 years between sequels, sometimes longer, you know, like 3 to 5 years sometimes between sequels. And now it's like, oh, we got to have, you know, so many movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe every single year. It's like, oh, this came out, it's gonna have a sequel next year. 2 years max, like, between movie sequels. But between then, we're gonna have, you know, 5 different streaming shows. And it dilutes it, it pushes things too quickly. You know, again, I don't really care so much about turnaround time per se, as long as it's good quality. And this is just concerning to me. I think it's gonna dilute everything, like, outrageously, unfortunately. All right, I'm skipping ahead a bit in the article here. It says, this acquisition will improve our offering and accelerate our business for decades to come, continued Greg Peters, co-CEO of Netflix. Warner Bros. Has helped define entertainment for more than a century and continues to do so with phenomenal creative executives and production capabilities. With our global reach and proven business model, we can introduce a broader audience to the worlds they create, giving our members more options, there that is again, attracting more fans to our best-in-class streaming service, strengthening the entire entertainment industry and creating more value for shareholders. I don't know how that strengthens the entire entertainment industry. Again, the competition has been pretty fierce during this whole era of streaming, although Netflix, in my opinion, probably has been at the top, even if it's by a slight margin. They kind of like spearheaded it, maybe not initially, but like in a noticeable way that made like great leaps in the technology. So Netflix, in my opinion, has kind of always been at the top, even if it's by a small thing. So again, they're just saying the same things over and over. More options, more options. Maybe more options isn't necessarily good. You know, like, I don't want that to sound weird. I love stories. I love all kinds of stories. I like the fact that there's different filmmakers and different studios even, and different streamers or whatever. But the fact that it's just, you keep saying more options, it's like, again, what does that mean specifically? I don't care that there's a bunch of different IPs. We know that. Does that mean you're just gonna make a billion sequels? You know, does that mean you're gonna remake all your stuff? Does that mean you're gonna just allow AI generated slop? Like, what does more options mean, and how is that better for consumers? And I hate even using that word. How is that better for the audience, right? Like, I don't want to be talked to like I'm just someone who's gonna buy something. Like, yeah, money's involved, I get it, it's a business, but it's like, if I'm gonna, you know, participate in your storytelling, I want to be an audience member. I want to be someone who is respected. I want to be someone who you care that if I engage with stories that you're making, hopefully that you are making and not generating, if that makes sense. So more options is not necessarily the best thing. I want good options. The number could be a lot or minimal options. It doesn't really matter. I want good options. I don't care about more options. It's like, that's really irritating me in this article / press release. And yeah, I still don't understand how that strengthens the industry. It's like, more options, again, like they've kind of alluded to, for talent. It's like, the fact that you're just gonna make a billion things doesn't necessarily mean that, because you could just be like, do 1 or 2 films with an actor, get them to sign something, and then they've got your image, your likeness, and your voice, and then they can just make a ton of things with it and literally give you pennies, if that, depending on how you sign your deal. Like, this could be terrible for talent. It's like, oh yeah, I'm in 70 movies within the span of 3 years. It's like, oh, that's awesome, you must be rich. It's like, no, actually, like, I have to hold, you know, several jobs to pay my bills. Like, you know, like, I don't see how this helps the industry. And forgive me, I'm not trying to be negative. I'm not trying to say I'm super business savvy when it comes to all this. The reason I bring this up is because the amount of money they're putting into it means they're making a huge play, and they're looking to dominate. Like, there's no question about that. Netflix wants to eliminate the competition, and they want to be on top, and they want to run the show. They want to run the entertainment industry. And I'm not against competition or things like that, but it just seems greedy to me. And there's just, to me, a lack of transparency here. More will come out over time, I'm sure, but I don't know. This, to me, just produces more questions than making me feel more excited, all right? Especially with, I love Warner Brothers. I've seen tons of their films my whole life. Like I said, Warner Brothers has been around for over a century. Some of my favorite characters ever belong to Warner Brothers. So I would like to be excited, and maybe I could be, but just nothing so far has made me think that I should be. All right, I'm skipping ahead quite a bit here. There's a lot of reviews from analysts here. That is interesting. I do recommend checking it out if you're interested in the business side of things, but it's a lot to do with the scrutiny of like Netflix and the regulations involved in all this. Like I said, government regulations, other things like that, and what it means for the industry as a whole. So now I'll read this quote from Laurent Yoon, who's an analyst, talking about WBD selling to Netflix. It says, WBD faces little downside, at least one worth taking, he wrote. Either they get acquired by Netflix, 85% cash, or they walk away with free capital to fund the next phase of growth. And more than $5 billion is enough to produce more than 20 Superman-scale blockbuster films. That's not a bad outcome either. So, it's a very interesting thing to think about it that way too. It's like you think, oh yeah, Netflix, greedy, whatever. And I don't know these people. I don't know what they're thinking exactly, obviously. But then like you think WBD, it's like a lot of these studios, they have been struggling to compete with one another. They've been struggling to get people into theaters. And though these movies do still make millions of dollars, which yes, is a lot of money, you got to think about the actual budget, the actual marketing that they spend to get people to go to the theater, and you got to think about ticket sales and how studios and theaters split those costs. It's not always exactly 50-50, but roughly it's 50-50. So there's a lot on top of just the budget that they've got to make back, and then on top of to actually like make money. So millions of dollars, sure, but they got to make a lot of money to make money, So for Warner Brothers, this is potentially a great deal, because if something happens to where Netflix is like, stopped from acquiring them, or they back out for whatever reason, they got almost $6 billion, and they can be like, all right, now what's our plan? We got some money, like let's restructure, whatever, like let's pivot, let's make a move, let's make these kinds of movies with a smaller budget, whatever they want to do. If they do it right, could be a huge win for them. So again, it's kind of a win-win for them, no matter how this goes. All right, moving on. It says, many in Hollywood are fearful of the deal, with theater owners group Cinema United saying in a statement overnight that the proposed acquisition of Warner Brothers by Netflix poses an unprecedented threat to the global exhibition business. The negative impact of this acquisition will impact theaters from the biggest circuits to one-screen independents in small towns in the United States and around the world. Cinema United President and CEO Michael O'Leary said, Cinema United stands ready to support industry changes that lead to increased movie production and give consumers more opportunities to enjoy a day at the local theater. But Netflix's stated business model does not support theatrical exhibition. In fact, it is the opposite. I already talked about that earlier, like they've made that very clear. Regulators must look closely at the specifics of this proposed transaction and understand the negative impact it will have on consumers, exhibition, and the entertainment industry. So obviously there's gonna be opposition, right? Netflix is like, oh, this is gonna be great. This is gonna be great for consumers. It's gonna be great for the industry. Well, theater chains are saying the exact opposite. They're like, this is actually gonna be bad for consumers and bad for the industry. Obviously bad for the theater and, movie exhibition industry, for sure. But again, what are we talking about here? Are we talking about these very little specific things within the industry, or are we talking about it as a whole? And that's, I think, where a lot of things are getting conflated and confused and not clear on. Netflix, I don't think, has any problem being general about that. Obviously, they want to make the deal go through because they want to keep their successful business model going. But as these theater chains are proposing, I agree with them, at least on that front. Now, I'm a person who loves movie theaters, even though, sadly, a lot of people have, gotten accustomed to streaming, and, a lot of people's attention spans are shot because everyone watches, TikTok and short form content and all that, but people still like movies. And I think the movie theater going experience, although it's not like way different than what it used to be, in my opinion, where I'm in Texas, but I understand there's people, you don't want to be in a theater, people just on their phones. You don't want to be in a theater where people are just talking like that's okay. It's like, if you're not interested in the movie and not enjoying it, just get up and leave. Don't talk and ruin someone else's experience. But with all that, the experience is never going to be perfect. It never has been perfect, but there's something enjoyable about going out to do something, seeing a film on a big screen the way it's intended to be seen, and in a communal sense. I love it when I'm watching a very intense film and the action hero does this heroic thing and everyone cheers. I like it when there's that spooky thing and that shock moment and everyone, gasps. Like, there's something cool about sharing that with other people. So I understand why theater owners are concerned, because this is potentially gonna crush that or make it a very, very, very niche thing, and there just won't be hardly any theaters anymore, which is so sad for me to think about. But I'm not giving up hope. Who knows? Who knows what's gonna happen? All right, so that's essentially the article. Like I said, there's more there. It's a Hollywood Reporter. You can go check it out. I have a tendency to agree with the movie theaters and with the directors. It seems like, obviously there's still other studios, but the competition's gonna be way more fierce because some of the most popular characters in the world now belong to Netflix. And people, they're still gonna wanna make those films. They're still gonna wanna be involved. I just feel like a lot of the contracts, a lot of the negotiations with the directors guilds, the writing guilds, SAG, those types of things, I just feel like Netflix, they kind of have the upper hand in a way. I don't have like specific reasons to say why. Like I said, I am an artist, I'm a filmmaker, and I do my best to follow the trades and understand the business. But it's not always my strong suit. So you can disagree with me, that's fine. I'd love to actually hear your thoughts, or if you know some stuff, like drop it in the comments. Let's get a conversation going. And that's kind of the point of the video anyway. I'm just, like I said, I'm kind of spitballing here, But to me, it just seems like it's gonna be harder, like if you wanna work with the characters and the IP that they have, if you wanna work with them, deals are gonna be pretty tough to negotiate, it seems like, because they're gonna have a lot going for them. They're gonna have a lot of leverage, it seems like. Now again, and the acquisition may not go through, or who knows, maybe it gets revised before it actually goes through. I don't know. There's some other random thoughts that I just have that I think could be very interesting. I would love to be proven wrong about my trepidation, right? Like, I would love for them to actually commit to theatrical releases. Although I did read somewhere else that they're probably gonna shorten the theatrical window, which also I think is totally detrimental. I think it's almost pointless to do that. And I think that would be intentional as well, because then that gives them an excuse to shut down the theatrical window because they're probably not gonna make as much. Who knows? That, again, that's very interesting to think about, because a shorter theatrical window could potentially do two very interesting things. It could make the sales probably skyrocket, potentially, depending on what it is, because people are like, oh, we know we only have a short time to see this in the theater, so everyone rushes to the theater. Or it just strengthens the idea of like, oh, like, it's gonna come to streaming real soon. I don't have to wait long. Like, yeah, my friends might see it, a month before me, but I'll see it like in just a few weeks. So it's like, I don't know what's gonna happen with that. Like I said, if it plays out to where they're not making money in those short windows, it gives them a perfect excuse to be like, hey, we tried it. We said we'd do it. It's not viable for us. We're not doing it anymore. And then they've got it. All those great IPs that you love, only streaming, which would be just so terribly sad for me. Then again, at a certain point, depending on what they do with all these films, these characters, this IP, if it is just slop, it won't even matter anymore. As much as I love Batman and whatever, I've got a bunch of old comics and graphic novels. I got a bunch of the older, really good films that I can just enjoy on my own and watch them again. and I don't have to take in the new stuff if it's just terrible. I wouldn't do that to myself. Oh, it's the new thing, I have to. It's like, no, it's like I would rather watch this better old thing. So Netflix has to be smart about this, really. Now, one thing I do find interesting, let's just say it all goes positive, right? Let's hope it goes positive. Let's just say they do a theatrical window. Let's hope it's successful, and maybe they widen those windows. That would be amazing. And start producing good stuff. I would love that. I have a hard time thinking that would happen, but I would love that. As I said earlier, I'm a big DC fan, and so like I don't know exactly what's going on with, you know, DC right now in terms of James Gunn and his universe. I think they're obviously still going to release the films that are in production and about to be released. But as far as like keeping him on and then continuing with the ideas and the stories that he is looking forward to making, I don't know if they're going to keep doing that or not. I've seen mixed things that I don't know for certain. I have no sources, you know, about. I've seen things like, oh, James Gunn is out now. Or like, oh, well, no, actually, he's still there. I don't know. And then obviously there have been rumors the past couple weeks about rebooting the Snyderverse, you know, and that there might be some legitimate things there. And it's like, I have a very difficult time believing that. I know that he has done a lot of things for Netflix, but then I also read another thing that he might be falling out of grace with Netflix. So the idea of rebooting the Snyderverse is difficult. I will say, you know, not everything he made within his cinematic universe was like amazing, you know, and he wasn't involved in all those films necessarily either. He was just, you know, helping produce. But he did a lot of things that I really liked, and especially the cast. I really enjoyed Henry Cavill. I think, you know, everybody did. I liked Ben Affleck as Batman, you know, like I think there were some great things about that. So people are speculating wildly, you know, about that, as am I. But I don't think there's any concrete evidence right now concerning those things. Those are just some random thoughts I had about that. Like I said, I don't know what's gonna happen from here. I would love to know what you guys think. Are you in favor of this deal? Are you excited about it? Do you love streaming? Do you love theatrical releases? I don't know what to think, guys, but I do wanna talk about it. I wanna know your thoughts. Is this good? Is this bad? What are we in for, guys? Like, is filmmaking about to completely change? In my opinion, Hollywood has been struggling for a while. The past 5 to 10 years of movies have just not been great. Obviously, there have been some good ones here and there throughout the years. Of course, there's always gonna be good films throughout the years. But man, just compared to when I grew up, you know, I just felt like most movies were good, and occasionally you got some that were duds. You know, but it just seems like lately, man, the films are mediocre. And with this acquisition, I don't want more mediocre. So now, for myself, for anyone who's watching, who's a filmmaker, I just want to encourage you to, in a way, get excited, right? Like, there's new technology, there is streaming, there's other ways to distribute things. And if you want to make a good story, make a good story. If you want to make something with IP that you absolutely love, I'm not discouraging you from that either. But I think we have an opportunity to create new characters and create new stories and new IP. I don't even really like using that word, but like that is gonna, you know, that is gonna impact the world for generations to come. I mean, that's what these pioneers did. That's what George Lucas did. You know, that's what a lot of these people did with these characters when they created things like Star Wars or DC Comics or Marvel. You know, it's like they created these amazing characters. They didn't exist before. So why can't we do that now instead of just reusing the same things over and over? I love those characters, but let's also make something new. Sorry, like I said, a lot of this is just kind of spitballing stream of consciousness stuff. But like I said, let's start a conversation in the comments. Let me know what you think. Are you excited? Are you not? Thank you for watching. Please like, please subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.